getting clear on identity. So identity for adoptees, it can be really tricky. And I think in hindsight, I've realized that identity has actually been my fascination for the last 14 years. Um, One of the biggest things that I learned 14 years ago was that we are not the voice in our heads, and we're not the story of what's happened in our lives. Now, those two sentences took me, I don't know, 6 seconds to read, maybe. To read out. I'm not actually reading. I've got some notes here, but it took me 6 seconds to say. Um, and I've been studying that for 14 years, and I started off by studying that bit of it, learning that I'm not the voice in my head, and learning that I'm not my story for 5 days. So what we're talking about here is deep, really deep stuff, and a deep investigation. It's not a meme on on social media, or something that hearing for the first time is going to change our lives. Probably not. It's not a superficial thing. It's not a. It's way deeper than that. And somebody once criticized me by saying, the trouble with you, Simon, is that you're too deep. I didn't have the answer to that at the top of my head, and when he said that, on the tip of my tongue. The answer came to me the following day, right? And it was, well, would you prefer me to be more shallow? And would you? Yeah. We live in a world that is pretty shallow some of the time. But the big stuff, the big learnings are, we have to go deep. We have to go deep for them. A superficial idea that fleets across our brain doesn't land with us, doesn't get us in there, doesn't get us in the guts, doesn't change our world. And the truth of that became clear to me, doing personal development work. It's the big insights that change our world, the big insights, and we have to go deep for those. So yeah, we are not the voice in our head. That's the inner critic, some people call it. We're the ones that hear that voice in our head, but he or she speaks. It sounds like us, so we think it is us, but we're not. We're the one that hears that voice, that unreliable narrator is just the rubbish. It's the rubbish that we've picked up from the world around us. It's got nothing to do with us. We weren't born with that negative voice in our head. We weren't born with the internal narrator. And so if we weren't born with it, how can it be us? No, it's just what the psychologists call our conditioning. It's the stuff that we picked up from the world around us. Often the central theme of this internal narrator is that we're not good enough. And this is especially true for adoptees, because we were given up by our birth mothers. So that we've got cast iron, concrete proof, right? And until we don't have contract proof. But we're not the voice in the head. We're not the stories that voice in head tells us. It's lies. The internal narrator is a liar, and it tells lies. And the central lie is that we're not good enough. So we're not the voice in the head. We're not, nor are we our feelings of insecurity, even if those feelings manifest like in our bodies. So we feel. I felt under attack recently. I felt under attack, and in a fallout with a friend, I felt under attack, and I felt insecure. I felt a feeling of aloneness and separation, being a fear of being rejected. But that feeling uh, came and then it went. So anything that comes and goes can't be the truth of who we are, because the truth never changes. That's the definition of the truth, right? Feelings that are intermittent, even if they're frequent, they go at some point. And when they're gone, what's left behind? Well, we are, aren't we? The one that feels the feeling. So we're not the voice in our head. We're not the story that the voice in our head tells us. We're not our feelings, and nor are we our trauma. Right? We're not. What's trauma made out of? Trauma's made out of. It's something that happened years ago. I was adopted 55 years ago. The trauma, the primal wound, it happened 55 years ago. And where does it live on? It lives on in the thoughts and the feelings and the sensations that I sometimes have, but that they come and go. Our trauma is something that happened to us. It isn't us. It revisits us like a bad penny that keeps on turning up. It turns up and then it goes, but it's not who we are. Who we are is that ever present consciousness, or awareness, or life force, or chi. It's got many different names. It's not who we truly are is only really understandable through metaphors, because when I saw we're not our body, I guess, is with the spirit that drives the body, with the animating force that operates our arms and operating my hands at the moment. When this became clear to me, was seeing my father-in-law's body 7-8 years ago. The body was there, but it was inert. It was not moving. The life force, the spirit that was Bill Dorwood, wasn't there anymore. So that spirit, it isn't a thing, and our minds are designed to get their heads round things. Our minds can't get our heads round something that is not a thing, like spirit. Spirit isn't a thing. It's more like a wind. You know, a spirit, a breath is an intake of breath, and does that sound like a wind? So why does that matter? Why does that matter? Well, because if you try and take a knife to wind to cut it, you can't cut it. It's not a thing. And if you can't cut it, there's no wound. And at that level, there's no primal wound, because if it's not a thing, it can't be cut. And if it can't be cut, it can't be wounded. We feel primarily wounded. I have felt primarily wounded. I have felt all those feelings of being unlovable, being rejected, being not good enough. Those feelings have been joined by a thought in my head: you're not good enough. Why did she give you up? What was wrong with you? not our thoughts, we're not our feelings, we're that spirit at a bigger level, at a meta level, at a higher level. The higher levels, when we're literally at a higher level, so we're looking out of a 35. I remember something pops into my head. The meeting with HSBC, a big global bank, in their headquarters in London, 35th floor, right? When I went up, up the level of the lift, I had a higher, better view of the world. I had more perspective. I could see life. I could see London underneath me far better than I could see it from street level. And that's what perspective gives us in the physical world. In the emotional, spiritual, psychological world, perspective gives us the ability to see things that we've not seen before, such as who we are. So people might have seen me do this before, but I'll do it again. This is really my favorite metaphor to show that we're not our trauma. So this is adapted from something from a mentor of mine called Michael Neal. He doesn't work in the adoption space, but I took his metaphor and I made it mine. I made it applicable to us adoptees, right? So my fist clenched. This is a metaphor for the anger that I felt for 20, 40 seconds towards my birth mother. What people might call the unresolved trauma. My fist is tightly clenched. Okay, that's not the natural state of my fist. This is the conditioned state of my fist. This is what I have come to believe about myself and how that's being expressed through anger. The trauma expressed through anger towards my birth mother. She didn't love me enough to keep me, was one of the sentences that came out of my mouth as I exploded with anger as a volcano. So the natural state of my hand is open. So if I open my traumatized hand, my tightly clenched fist, you can start to see the truth of who I am and who we all are. A diamond, this is a glass one, right? Not a real one. From Amazon, thank you, £7. This is who we are. It's brilliant, it's perfect. And the metaphor every metaphor loses its worth at some point. Because if this was, this is a £7 piece of glass, if it was a diamond, it maybe, I don't know, £1 million, would it? 10 million quid. But our worth as individuals is infinite. It doesn't have a finite limit to it. That diamond, the perfection of who we truly are, is veiled, hidden by the trauma. But no matter how much my trauma, my fist, tries to crush the diamond, it's not going to damage it, is it? Like if we were playing rock, paper, scissors, the paper wins by wrapping the fist, wrapping the rock. The scissors wins by cutting the paper, but the scissors doesn't win against the rock or the diamond because it can't cut it. The scissors can't cut the rock. A knife, scissors can't cut a diamond. And again, there's no wound. There's no wound because there's no cut. So let me give you another metaphor for who we truly are. So imagine a nightclub, and there's bouncers on the door, right? There's security on the door. Our limiting beliefs and our stories that we've told ourselves and that we're telling ourselves, they're like bouncers stopping new ideas coming in. So if we put those bouncers, if those bouncers stand aside for one moment and we go in to the cavernous nightclub, we find nothing there. We find an empty space. And that empty space accepts, it's all inclusive, right? It accepts everybody. It expects it, and as that empty space, we accept every feeling and every thought that comes in. The space of the room is not upset by the people that come in, and the space that we are is not upset by the thoughts and feelings that come in, no matter how insecure those thoughts and feelings are. What we resist persists. So fighting the feelings keeps them in place. Suppressing the feelings keeps them in place. Suppressing the thoughts keeps them in place. It gives them added credibility. Or they come up in another way, like, okay, game of whack-a-mole. So there's distinction here between accepting, right? I just have to accept how I feel. No, you don't have to accept how you feel. The accepting space that you are will accept that feeling, and when when that space accepts our feeling, because its nature is acceptance, then it takes the sting. It takes the sting from the scorpion. It takes the sting out of those horrible feelings that make us feel bad. So we're not our thoughts. We're not our feelings. We're not our story. We're not our trauma. We're not our body. We are spirit, consciousness, awareness, the diamond veiled by the trauma we've been through and the trauma we feel, and the awareness of the thoughts and feelings that pass through us or stick with us if we resist them. Thanks a lot, guys. See you very soon. Bye-bye.